Hello, hello. I've done something that I don't really think I've ever done before. I've given a lot of presentations, quite a few concerts. I wrote this down. It felt important to me, and I didn't want to go home going, oh my gosh, I said too much of that and too little of that, and I forgot to mention that, and so I wrote it down. So I will do this. So I don't have my chops on the looking down, looking up, and the recognizing people. Actually, I can't see you, but I bet I do recognize all of you. So this is so I've been thinking a lot this week. I thought tonight could be very different depending on what happens on Tuesday. But generally, these are very turbulent times. And in these times, there are a lot of burning questions. We get asked a lot of burning questions, specifically, what do you do first, the words or the music? So and actually for me, I don't know about you, but for me, this is, the best thing is when they come together. A phrase that says, if I wrote you, or a phrase that says, as cool as I am, and then this sort of song spills out from that initial kind of words and music thing together. But I know what people are asking about. This is their way of asking us to locate that moment that is where the songwriting process begins. It's exciting, and I think we all know that moment and how exciting it is. Some people call it a spark, other people call it the tingles. There was an author who called it the tinglies. I call it that moment when the window opens, when you realize that you're beginning to write a song. And I love that moment, and I'm a big cheerleader for other people having that moment. It's a poetic way of seeing one's reality, and it's embedded in music, no less. And ideally, the music is bringing nuances and meaning to the language that make all of the song all the more descriptive of our observed poetic experience. It's really exciting. I'm going to put this down here. So it's delightful. To me, it's delightful. It's also, to me, important. And that's why I was very excited to be asked to speak here tonight. Writing songs is important. So I will. I'm a big supporter of the importance of writing songs for the sake of writing songs. I also want to say that I want to add to that I'm a big supporter of finding a way to make money at making music. I'm all for it. And this weekend, great. This weekend is a lot about the special friendships that can occur within a songwriting community. And I'm sure you're going to feel that. It's also about exposing, promoting, and networking so that writing these songs can be at least part of how we make a living. So I think songwriting is inherently important, but I really respect the commercial, the commerce of making music. And I hope that you can share tips and make contacts, as well as feeling that sense of connection. It's harder to make a living now in music than it was in 1994. And I don't say that to be a huge bummer. I just say that to recognize something, because people don't want to believe that. But it is different now. In 1994, I was starting out and people bought CDs. For me, starting around 2005, around 40% of my income went away. I wasn't selling CDs, and a lot of other things went away with that. In the hardware department, I wasn't getting money from compilation CDs or covers from other people's CDs. They weren't selling them either, and so that's the hardware part. Then sort of in the softer part around them, record companies that might have spent $10 million on 30 different bands trying to turn us on to new music just threw up their hands. I remember walking into a Starbucks where they used to compile Erykah Badu's latest songs with new artists, and on this day that I walked into the Starbucks, there was just all Bob Dylan. It was like the record company said, Bob Dylan, you loved him before, you'll love him again. We're going to park that whole $10 million on Bob, or the Eagles, or Sheryl Crow. And not everybody was on a major label or was on a Starbucks thing, but a lot of my friends would have one moment where they were on a Starbucks compilation, or something would happen, just an ancillary thing, gave them a little boost. No more. The Eagles, go. Pay $200 for parking, pay $200 for food, pay $400 for tickets. The end. I didn't think that would affect me, but it did as well. And then there was the passive listening culture that went with the streaming culture. And at the height of the CD buying culture, that rose with internet championing of new artists, and I want to thank the people who really used that medium of the internet to champion new artists in a really generous and innovative way. You might, at the height of this sort of CD buying, new internet culture, you might walk into a cafe where a beautiful spiky-haired counter girl would smile to herself as you looked at the Ani DeFranco or Aeneas Mitchell CD she'd perched against the register as you heard the music in the speakers. So she was, enlightening you. It was a cafe culture on a mission, along with Putumayo and local festival compilations. So that was that moment. Conversely, a few years ago, I was at an LA museum shop, and I thought, Edie Brickell. I thought, what a wonderful new direction for her music. Is this her? I asked the woman at the register, and she said, I don't know. And then reluctantly, you want me to check? It took her a while to slide off her stool and look. It's too late. The song ended. I said, can a person see the playlist? She said, yeah, maybe. It's a Pandora channel. It's called Chillaxation. I'm sure that people still park their friends on their futons, tell them to close their eyes and listen to music for the first time and really feel those feelings that come from hearing that music. But I don't know. It feels different now. I'm allowed to say that without qualifying because I'm a musician. It just feels different, man. But I could qualify it. I could probably, go down check down the list about why it might feel different. But I will say it feels different. It feels like people just like music that's out there. And I feel that difference in public spaces when I'm in public spaces with music playing. And that can be dispiriting. And new people come in and they tell us that if we believe what we do, if we love what we do, we can make a living at it. And that is bullshit. That is a very destructive lie. If you are passionate about podiatry and write 20 great songs about it, you might still not find the audience that I found when I wrote, when I was a boy, an autobiographical song that I wrote that happened to hit a vein of interest about gender exploration. Foot songs, our society is just not ready for that yet. But when I was a boy, I wrote that as almost an archival piece, just documenting my own experience, and I lucked out. So this idea that you love something and it's all going to happen, well, that was what our society was ready for, that song. So I'm very grateful for that. I tell that to many of my songwriting friends who didn't feel like they struck that vein, but still deeply believe in what they do, and I believe in what they do as well. The other thing that we hear is that if we're better at technology, we can make money. So move over, George Martin, because Ringo can learn Pro Tools. Also, there's the spend $1,000 making your own video and then you'll make it back in increased audiences. You probably won't. Or maybe just be better at social media and the likes will translate into audience attendance. I don't mean to be cynical, maybe to all of this. But in the meantime, the pure joy of a recorded project, the product that sometimes people do instead of touring, goes by the wayside often, because recorded music is just a promotional tool for getting and populating gigs, according to sort of the floating philosophy. There are still a lot of people who apply ethical consideration to how they buy music, and many like to have a CD in their hands. And there are many, yes, we love them, and we love you. And there are many promoters and radio presenters who also carry this ethic. And I was just out in Washington State, and I was listening to one of these beautiful folk radio shows in the morning. It was a Saturday morning, and people were singing about war and peace and their family and their siblings and their grandparents and what we're here for and geography. And it was really meaningful. I was driving along rivers, and the song and the river and the terrain and the sense of time, they all sort of came together the way that beautiful morning folk show thing can really pull us into the present. And then the presenter just said, "That's just a lot of neat stuff." He said, "We're going to do a station ID, and we're going to thank our promoters, and then we're going to play some more neat stuff." But that was he was right. It was just neat stuff. And I also wanted to say a big thank you to a lot of the Connecticut people who have played me. So PKN is here, WWUH is here, West U is here, or that's sort of, yeah, okay, that counts. Go West. These radio presenters, whether they're saying it simply, whether they mention artists who are on the songs with us, contextualize things, curate the songs, that's a very big deal. And I also want to give a shout out to Sirius XM, because that is something that did compete with radio stations, but I found that the people I knew at SiriusXM really went out of their way to notice this and to curate what I did to find a diversity of places for me to play within that and to really give that context to artists. I just want to give a special shout out to Mary Sue Toohey and Meg Griffin. So if that threading a needle to make a career in music is even harder than it used to be, we're allowed to feel like, why bother writing a song at all? Why bother writing for that tingle? Waiting for the tingle, working our way through phrasing, rhyming, and waiting for that moment that it all comes together. It sounds like sacrilege for me to say that, but it's okay. A lot of my career songwriting friends, even the most pagan, druidic, angel-conversant, spiritual songwriting friends that I have, were caught off guard by the loss of that tangible marker, that CD that people bought. And they worried that no one gave a hoot about their music. But, as we all know, it is worth it for ourselves and for the world. It is worth it to write songs. We do know that. We do. So, my friend Tom heard how much I loved teaching a college course, and he said, "You have to lead a songwriting retreat." And I said, "Yeah, I would really love to." No way, no way. Songwriters are going to want to know how to make EPKs and press packs and Spotify playlists and how to get a record contract, which is almost non-existent now. And if I were going to lead a songwriting retreat, it would have to be called, writing a song that matters to you or your cat or your favorite dentist or your lover. Or Tom said, "Why don't you lead a songwriting retreat called Writing a Song That Matters?" And that made a huge difference, and that's what I did. So, thanks. So lo and behold, I went. No one was asking anyone how to turn this into a living. We knew why we were there. We were there at square one. The people who came to the retreat were, by profession, teachers, counselors, ministers, lawyers, professors, and a lot of parents with various professions who had taken time away from writing for the first 8 to 18 years of their kids' lives. My lovely friend, Narissa Niels, explained something to me that I really want to share with you songwriters, because she cleared it up. She said, "We think because we have a child within, we're going to have this instant rapport with our children. But often the child within competes with our children for every precious minute of our time." So, now we know. So people took this time away. They didn't compete. And a lot of them hadn't picked up a pen in a decade, and they couldn't remember what picking up the pen would look like. So, fast forward, I am very pleased, in fact, I'm thrilled, that many of the people who came to the retreat are out there gigging. But they're not gigging because we scouted out the special door of commercially viable songs. We talked about the open window, and we endeavored to find it, to keep it open, to respect and follow whatever was coming through it. And so we started writing songs, or beginning songs, or making the choice to go home and tell our spouses that we would be asking for more time and space to find the open window, no matter what came through it. And then it seemed answers started to come. The why of why we write songs. There were tears, there were cheers, there was recognition. And who knows what in a song is going to set off an emotional response. For me, it was the detail about hearing about the superheroes on a young boy's sheets in bed at night. For others, it was a song that was a new take on a high school reunion. For others, it was the free-form exploration of fear and courage with many dynamics and nuances and not a lot of words. There was a song about disappeared women in Canada that was almost whispered, and we had to lean in to hear. We had to hear it leaned in, the way perhaps as a society we don't lean in far enough to notice the presence of something that is chillingly absent. These songs found us, located us, reminded us of a poetic human scale, because that's just what happens when we sit ourselves down and recognize that doing this songwriting thing will pretty inevitably lead to all sorts of connections, a huge range of connections. One woman early on came to me and said, I'm really a poet and I'm not planning to write a song. I was hoping that you, Dar, would write a song about something that no one writes enough about. I want you to write about miscarriage. And I said, but songs in many ways are about going to a place that you know, that you understand, bringing back the things that you know and bringing back that wisdom for us, yours, that you have from your experience. And I don't want to pressure you, but I would love it if you wrote a song. She was very dubious. So I didn't think she would write a song or even a poem. But she showed up in our group later that week and she said, I have a song. She had gone to my wonderful friend, Michelle Gedney, of the group Open Book with Rick Gedney. And they had found a melody, and they'd found an access point into which they could turn these thoughts and feelings into a song. It had to do with magical thinking. How did this happen today? Were the clouds too low? Was the sun too high? It was like her palms were open, and she was asking, I won't be angry. I'd just like to know how this happened, how this happens. It was very emotional for all of us, but we recovered ourselves and affirmed how she had been able to turn this into a song, noting words and chords that had struck us. And she nodded and she said, but who cares? So I wrote this, and who cares? And then we heard a sound, and we looked over at a woman who had been silently weeping, who had a look of recognition, and she said, I care, I care. So I'm a big fan of writing a song because it's a creative process, and that's a generative, playful, revelatory process. But I also love the fact that songs can connect and reach out and heal in ways that we never knew until we put them out in the world like a whole bunch of Curious George newspaper hats. I encourage you to go ahead and take yourselves and the business of things that you're pursuing as seriously as you want to take them and as far as you can go. I did. I also hope that you will just love and feel the excitement of the open window and the tingle and the spark and trust and the trust that you can foster inside yourself, that outside of commerce, our songs are unique and they connect uniquely. I've had because I've been playing for a long time and because I've played with a lot of really great, earthy, crunchy, committed people, I've gotten to see movements and the way songs are involved with movements and the way they influence movements, and I've studied this as well. So actually I was at a women's studies class recently, and I was talking about, we played the song Ode to a Gym Teacher by Meg Christian, about her crush on her gym teacher. And we played songs by Chris Williamson's Changer in the Change, an album that changed a lot of things in our culture and people's lives. And I said something about how these songs normalized the lesbian experience. And the women's studies teacher went, normalized? That kind of assumes that one thing is normal and another thing is not. I was like, oh, good point. So we had a really nice exchange. I said, but there's something really relevant about what these songs do. It's like they allow diversely lived lives to exist in familiar frames. And then she thought about it, and she's quite a brilliant women's studies professor, and so she wrote this, she said, well, I think this has to do, what we're talking about, it has to do with how music enables moving marginal experiences and identities into central spaces, reframing them in a way that captures the positive and powerful things at the center, but without compromise or capitulation. So, thank you, Mary Armstrong. So I have had the honor of seeing things come from the margin to the center, and I've watched how music and songwriting and large-scale connections through music and the placement of music and the lyrics in songs have allowed things to move to the center where the power is, but without capitulation. It's really something I believe in and something I encourage us all to believe in. But I've also watched the way that eccentric, eclectic, very interesting mental frequencies get expressed in a lot of different kinds of song, and I've gotten to see them received very eclectically and individually by people in a way that's also very important. So, and I value that, and I just want to say that I've witnessed this happening, and of course this, you know, I'm a folk singer, of course, I'll say that these are testament to the human spirit. You know, I believe in sort of the strength and the presence of the human spirit. But they are also connections. These are also connections to an admirably, and I really want us all to know this, an admirably inclusive democracy. We are a very eclectic, regionally, spiritually, emotionally eclectic society. So when people write songs that aren't The Changer and the Changed, which sold 500,000 albums, which seemed impossible at the time, and June Millington has stories about having to explain to Chris Williamson that it's kind of normal to find fans showing up in your backyard because now she was a superstar. You know, there are moments when we see that songs are somehow embraced socially or commercially, but that moment of writing something, feeling that tingle, looking at that open window, letting that window open, and writing the song that you want to write and that feels important to you, it does connect. And there are lots of different people to whom those very individually, idiosyncratically felt songs are important as well. And on top of that, I hope that you can confirm that and affirm that for one another here this weekend, because we are a brethren of songwriters. No matter where we are, whether we are playing it songs, you know, as career paths or as a part-time job or not, as ministers, as teachers, as family members, we are all brethren in believing that this communication and this connection is important. So let us all keep the faith, and I thank you.